In this section, we are learning something called R formula. So to understand R formula, you got to recall something in what you learn in trigo equation. So in trigo equation, okay, if you recall the fourth teaching worksheet, trigo number 4, you learn about the 4 steps of solving trigo equation. So the 4 steps is only meant when you got a single trigo function. So this is called a single trigo function. It can be a cosine function, it can be a sine function, and then it can be a tangent function. So only where you got single trigo, then you can do your 4 steps. Your 4 steps will be basic angle, ASTC, and range to get the answer. So only for a single trigo function, then you are able to execute the 4 steps. So the purpose of our formula is to convert two functions. So we are converting sine and cosine into a single sine function. We are also converting a cosine and sine into a single cosine function. So these two, the purpose of our formula, before we go into the how do we convert it, okay, or how we use the formula. So you got to understand that the purpose of the R formula is to convert two functions into one function. Okay, so we convert two functions into a single function so that eventually you can execute your 4 steps that you learn in your trigo equation, which is basic angle ASTC. Okay, so to be very specific, we will use the R formula in this situation where you got a sine plus minus cosine equal to a number. Or you will use the R formula when you got a cosine plus sine equal to a number. So specifically, this number cannot be 0. So this is the situation that we will be using. So there will be formulas here. Okay, later on we go into this formula. Okay, so later on we go into the conversion. How do we use these two R formula? Okay, how to convert using these two R formula. And right now you need to be clear, when do you use the R formula? So you use the R formula because you want to convert two trigo function into one trigo function. And you will use it where you got two trigo function, where you try to add or subtract two trigo function, and it is equal to a number. So the number cannot be 0. Okay, so I repeat, you will use it when you try to add or subtract sine and cosine. Sine and cosine, when you try to add sine and cosine, or when you try to subtract sine and cosine, equal to a number. So you must understand when are you going to use it. The question will not be telling you. So this is when do you use it. Okay, and then how to use it will be under the formula part. So later on we'll talk about it. So the condition of when to use it will be C cannot be equal to 0. So we would like to think about what if C is equal to 0. So in this situation, C is equal to 0. So if you look carefully, I'm adding a sine and I'm adding a cosine equal to a 0. So we're adding sine and cosine and it is getting into a 0. So the theory says that I don't need to use R formula. I don't need R formula to reduce it to a single function. The reason is because, okay, I can use tangent. I can use tangent to reduce sine and cosine into a single function. Okay, so, and that it can happen because I got a 0 that allow me to bring the function over. Okay, and then I can squeeze out a tangent by doing a divide. So initially you start off with two trigo functions, sine and cosine. So after the use of the tangent formula, I got into a single function. That's where I can do my basic angle. Remember to ignore the negative. And then I can do my ASTC. Then I can find my two answers. So if it's equal to 0, I will not be using R formula to reduce to a single function. I can simply use tangent formula. But if it's not a 0, it won't happen. So you can imagine if it's not a 0. So for example, if it's not a 0, it can just be a simple 1. If you do that right, no matter what, you couldn't get rid of the numerical 1. Okay, you cannot say that I'm just going to divide over. So some people will do this kind of things that doesn't make sense. They will still do, they will just literally divide over. Then they will tell me that I'm left with this. So this one is totally wrong because it doesn't make algebra sense. You cannot just divide the cosine if there's a numerical value. Okay, so let's recap. Okay, what's the purpose of the R formula? The purpose is to reduce two functions, sine and cosine, into a single function. Why single function? Only when it's single function, then you can execute your 4 steps. So the purpose of R formula is to reduce sine and cosine into a single function. And you will use R formula when you try to add sine and cosine, or you want to subtract sine and cosine, but then it's actually equal to a number that is not 0. So here we also explore, what if the number is a 0? I don't need R formula. I just use the tangent formula. I can reduce it to a single function. So that is the whole idea about R formula. So there are some people who don't understand why you want to use the R formula or when you want to use the R formula. So we need to reduce two functions into a single function. That's the whole idea why there's an R formula. So in the next two example, I will be showing you how are we going to convert into using the R formula. How the R formula can help us convert two functions into a single function.